Welcome back, space friends. It's time for another episode of Voices of New Eden. Today's interview is with a player who's been around for the game for a very long time, and he's the organizer of a very dear wintertime event. Since there's a lot of territory to cover in this interview, we're just going to dive right into it.
So I am Commander A9. I am an incursion runner primarily. I also run the agency events, and my biggest impact on Eve has been hosting the annual Luminaire Snowball Fight, which is just as it sounds. It is a massive gathering in the system of Luminaire over the winter holiday, wherein attendees can show up with festival launchers and hurl snowballs and fireworks at each other, as well as participate in light show contests, a Secret Santa exchange. And we typically have music playing from Eve Radio or New Eden Radio, which has been supporting us for the last 11 years of our operations. I was looking at the ads for Eve, which back at the time was 2009, and you would see the ads pop up in your browser, and it would say, I forget what exactly it said, but said something to the effect of find your future, secure your future, or seize the stars, or something to that effect. And it would show these battleships firing lasers and such. So I ended up talking to a friend about it, and turns out he played. So he introduced me to the trailers, and I thought that looked pretty cool. I thought the idea of getting a battleship and, going amongst the stars, blowing stuff up was pretty exciting. So he offered me a trial period over Christmas of 2009. I gave it a try, found it was pretty entertaining, pretty exciting, and just launched myself that way. Found myself into a small corporation out in Galente space, but joined a little bit too soon before I was really ready. But said friend bought me my first month in Eve. I used that to train up and introduce myself to some people who ended up becoming some really nice friends and welcomed me to the game. I just got my start that way. I started off doing a little bit of everything, kind of like how I think a lot of people get their start. I started off as a miner, and I was amongst the asteroid belts. I made some decent money, and I had a good system down to the point that some people in my corporation accused me of bot mining. But no, I never bot mined. I never used any kind of third-party programs or any kind of BS like that. I just didn't do anything except spend all my time in the asteroid belts. And I ended up moving on out to a Mars space with a corporation that was setting up shop in Canada, in the Canada sectors. Got into mission running to improve our corporation's loyalty level with the Canada and Amorian empires, and then got into transporting. I met some people that were into transportation and courier running, and ended up finding my way into the haulers channel with Rita Jita, who was one of the founding officers. Became an officer in said haulers channel and was running contracts all up and down space. Well, it turned out that in summer of 2013, there was a power outage, or there was some kind of outage with Eve that kept us down for a couple of days. And we in the haulers channel were talking to all of our transport runners, telling them, look, get in touch with your contract holders, tell them that your deliveries are still on the way, because now all of our transporters are vulnerable because the contract timer has expired, and they could very well have their contracts failed on them to the tunes of billions of ISK in collateral. So that was a huge risk, and that was a slippery slope that we were all standing on. Meanwhile, one of our corporation members was getting into incursions, and he was trying to get the corporation to do the same thing. So he formed a corporate only fleet, took us into a couple of sites, and introduced us to what incursions were all about, and found that, yeah, it was pretty exciting, pretty entertaining. And this another pilot in the fleet became something of a mentor to me, but it ended up getting to the point that I was asking him a lot of questions because I didn't really understand how it worked, and he ended up getting a little frustrated with me and decided that he was going to throw me to the wolves and I was going to be on my own. And I remember the last thing he said to me was that nobody was going to accept an 800 millimeter autocannon armor fit Macarial. A day later, I joined the Titanian fleet with that exact fit, and that started my incursion career. My go-to community at this time would be twofold. It would be events and live events, which specializes in hosting player run events or processing the events that you might find in the agency system. So we run Crimson Harvest, Guardians Gala, Federation Day, the current Winter Nexus event that's going on. And we'll talk about the events, we'll share intel, we'll share tips, tricks, fits, we'll help each other out if one of us is having a problem or in trouble or needs some advice. And then my other community is the incursion community. So I have flown with a myriad of incursion groups since I first got involved in 2013. Yeah, I've been running incursions for about 11 years. So I've flown with a Toonie Project, Titanian Fleet, Valhalla Project, Warp to Me, Helix, DKY, ISN, even Test had an incursion fleet when they were still running around down in Esoterra's sectors. Now I fly with TLA, which is short for three-letter acronym, which at this time is one of the best and quickest and most efficient running incursion communities, period. They primarily use Marauders. They've got damn good fleet commanders that all come from experience. So I would say, yeah, if you asked me what my communities were, it would be the incursion community and live events and events. So I was part of the officer corps for the live events community, the player run live events community, and we're discussing our situation. And we decide, well, if the developers aren't going to do it, if they're not going to host events, then it's up to us. It's up to the players. So my first event was a demonstration out in front of a courthouse wherein the fate of a Minmatar exchange student who was taking classes in Galente space was being decided. The story was that this Minmatar individual was being harassed by these Galente ultranationalists. They attacked him. He defended himself. He ended up killing one of them and then was brought up on trial for murder. So my first event was to stage a gathering outside this station, and of course, some people shot each other. They were role playing, of course. And then I was thinking about my next event, and it was December 2013 at the time. Well, here we are, sitting on these brand new festival launchers that CCP gifted everybody with, a couple hundred snowballs, sitting on them, going, "What do we do with these? Huh? Why don't we go to Luminaire and have a snowball fight? Let's do it. Let's just do something different. Let's just do something stupid and, something crazy, and let's see how many people show up." So I get on the forums and I go, "Hey, in the spirit of live events, for the sake of the people, I'm hosting a snowball fight. Come to Luminaire, bring your festival launchers, bring your snowballs, and we'll just pelt the hell out of each other. I'll make a call to Eve Radio or New Eden Radio. We'll play some music. Taking lead from Eve Radio, we'll have light show contests, and the person that creates the best looking display wins prizes." Well, some people donated money, some people donated ships and equipment. So the event starts. I got a bunch of people in system, a bunch of people showed up at the station. There they are shooting each other with snowballs. We're having a good old time. I look away for 1 second. I look back on my screen. Local chat is exploding because, lo and behold, there's CCP Falcon and CCP Logibro warping onto grid with the old Concorde battleships from literal 2013. You can't even get these anymore. These were the predecessor to the Marshalls. So here they are landing on grid going, hey boys, what's up? Gentlemen, how are you? Welcome to the first Luminaire Snowball Fight. And, people went nuts. People went crazy. And then afterwards, they get into the forum topic. They say, hey, this was a great party. This was a great event. So that was endorsement to do it again. Second year goes off. It's even better. Third year, 2015, starts. CCP writes a news article promoting the Snowball Fight, inviting people to the Snowball Fight. I'm queuing up in Fleet with Warp to Me, and my Warp to Me boss comes online and goes, "Yo, A9, you got coverage." Uh, excuse me? You got coverage for the Snowball Fight. What are you talking about? In the Eve News, man. Really? And from there, the Snowball Fight has enjoyed support from capsuleers aplenty, as well as a number of CCP developers and contributors over time. And we've gotten skins, we've gotten Plex, we've gotten some other resources that we've been able to use. We've gotten support with snowball conversion after some of our snowballs got melted one year. Luckily enough, CCP Falcon and Convict and Dragon and everybody else who supported us over the years were able to get us what we needed in order to have an awesome event. And they've even contributed by showing up to the grid in outrageous ships like a Titan that will launch a doomsday strike against another developer's carrier or freighter or something outrageous like that and get them blown up live on grid. So it's been this awesome event over the last 10 or 11 years that it might not make the Eve news, it might not have like 1,000 people blowing each other's titans up, but it's this opportunity for people to come together, enjoy themselves over the holidays, and do something a little different. Maybe blow off some steam or wish each other a Merry Christmas and try something different in the name of live events for the sake of the people. And that's why I do it. A pain point? Uh, now, to CCP's credit, they need to continue to innovate. I appreciate them trying new things. I appreciate them trying things like Dust 514, like Nova Legion, which was the next attempt at a first person shooter before Vanguard. I appreciate them trying Vanguard. I appreciate them trying Valkyrie, Gunjack, going into mobile, going into different platforms. I appreciate them trying Captain's Quarters, despite its controversy. And the reason that I appreciate this is because stagnation is death for any MMO. If it gets to the point where CCP does nothing but focuses on spaceships, that's going to eventually get boring. So the challenge with any video game developer, be it CCP or frankly anybody else, is to constantly keep their community engaged and keep them logging back into the game. Because if you're just doing the same damn thing over and over and over again, eventually it's going to get stale and people are going to move on and they're going to take that money with them. The problem is that if you take a platform like Dust 514, this in particular has been actually my pain point with Eve. I really loved the concept of Dust 514. The idea of fighting it out on the ground, giving the combatants on the planets a perspective on what Eve Online is like, getting them integrated into the wars and our conflicts. The problem with Dust is that it wasn't implemented properly. It was confined to the PlayStation 3 and the PlayStation 4. Sony had CCP by when it came to putting out patches and updates, and even from the Eve perspective, participating in Dust 514 operations was extremely limited. The only way that you could provide orbital fire support to Dust 514 operatives on the planet was if you were in faction warfare, in low sec, and over a temperate planet at the time with an active battle going on somewhere on the surface. So already upon the moment of its launch, it's a very narrow focus on a very small amount of players that could actually qualify to participate. And in the end, Dust 514 folds because interest wanes on both sides. I would have appreciated Dust 514 being released on the PC because, yes, EVE Online pilots might have had to make a choice, but you could play both. How many players participated in both the test server and the live server? How many people are coming over from the old Chinese server to play on both sides? You don't have to be limited to just one platform. But yeah, my pain point is the evaporation of dust. I miss it, And I wish it would come back. I don't think it ever will. Or at least, I don't think Vanguard is ever going to get to where Dust 514 used to be. But I do appreciate the people that remember it, and I definitely appreciate CCP continuing to try new things, to inject new content into the game, to try new avenues. Because again, stagnation is death. I think they're doing their best. You know, we've watched CCP directives change over the last 20 years of our involvement here in EVE Online. I think as long as they continue to keep the players' interest, try new things, release new content, try new events, I think things will be all right. You know, I'm not a member of the CSM. I haven't been in nullsec in 4 or 5 years, and I don't know a lot of what is going on from I guess, the meta perspective or how other players are operating things. Admittedly, I've got a very narrow focus in Eve. I run events, I do incursions, and I'll occasionally do a little bit of PvP, but that's really it. And I've been hoping to branch out, of course, but real life gets in the way, and I don't have a lot of time. But as long as CCP continues to, keep their players' interest and listen, I think I think one problem that one problem that CCP has is that I don't know if they're really listening to some of the players' issues. I think what we've seen over the last couple of years is, especially in terms of the help system, I think we've seen that offloaded to somebody else, or it's become automated, or things have drastically changed. And I'm not going to get into too much detail because I respect the office too much, but I think CCP needs to remember that its players are still human and they're going to make mistakes. And there needs to be an open channel that all players should be able to use to get in touch with the developers regardless of their situation. I have been playing Eve since 2009, and it has been an absolute wild trip. You know, I haven't done possibly everything, but what I've done so far has been exciting and it's been absolutely phenomenal. I've looked at my video game playing history, and no matter how many other games I've played, or how long or how short of a time that I've played in Eve for, a given year or so, the one game I always come back to is EVE Online. I've played a lot of VR chat, and I've played a lot of Command and Conquer, I've played a lot of Mech Warrior, I've played a lot of Phantasy Star, but the one game that I keep coming back to, even if it's just to log on and do a daily award or check my plans or something like that, the one game I always come back to is EVE Online. And I love it when our game makes the news. I loved it when we had that display in the New York Museum of Art. I love it when we've got a big battle that breaks the news and, so many hundreds of thousands of dollars of American money has been destroyed in a single engagement. I love that. I love the fact that we have a monument in the real world that's considered a government protected structure in Iceland. I love it whenever I see somebody in the real world and they've got a shirt with the Garistas Pirates logo on. And I absolutely love it. I want to go to FanFest one of these days. Now that I'm actually traveling and going to different conventions, one con I want to go to is FanFest. I cannot wait to figure out how I'm going to get to Iceland and try this out. But yeah, my go-to game has been EVE Online. Regardless of anything else I've been doing, and no other game has had that kind of relationship with me before, and it's been fantastic.
There really aren't many other MMOs that give players the chance to pick up the narrative and create an event that not only goes down in history, but is looked forward to year after year. This is what makes EVE such a great game, and there are so many opportunities for players to step up and make a difference. And it doesn't matter if you've been playing for 5 minutes or since the day the game came out. If you're creative and can think outside the box, there's plenty of opportunities to do something that leave your mark in this game. Before closing out this video, please go and put a reminder in your calendars on December 1st to start watching for news about the 2025 Luminaire Snowball Fight. It's always great when the community shows up to support one another in player-created events. Also, keep an eye out on this channel for Voices of New Eden, the Afterburner. This is where content that didn't make it into these interviews can be found. I can tell you that there's some really good stuff from Commander A9 that you don't want to miss at all. Things like the actual backstory of the Snowball Fight. It comes from a place that you probably didn't think of. Talking about incursions and what Plex was like back in the day. It was vastly different than it was now. So with all this being said, I want to thank you so much for coming out and supporting this initiative. These interviews are starting to gain traction, and hopefully sometime in February, they'll also be going up as podcasts here on YouTube and Spotify, as well as other places that podcasts are published. This will hopefully make listening to episodes while traveling or at work a lot easier. But this is a one-player production, so please have some patience, just a little bit. Until then, you can help out by giving videos a like, subscribe to this channel, and hit me up for your own 15 minutes of fame. Until next week, fly safe. I'm Kshal, and this is Voices of New Eden.